It's time for the NOWMAN Show with your host, Niswander. Right now.
Hello, this is Niswander. You are watching the NOWMAN Show. In this edition, we will be focusing on music. This is our second music special, which features live and music videos. So sit back and relax and enjoy the NOWMAN Show Music Special number 2. You obviously like the Rolling Stones. Let's get back to music. You did the Crossfire Hurricane. You also made this great documentary about Keith Richards. So what was it like hanging out with Keith Richards?
The thing is, what I tried to do with that documentary was to convey exactly the answer to that question. Because I feel like the film is kind of a hang with Keith Richards. And Keith is one of those people for whom having a camera there or not having a camera there doesn't change things. You know, he's kind of the same guy all the time. You know, and he's refined that for a long time. I mean, the thing I didn't know that going into it. What I did the first day, I mean, before we even knew we were going to make a documentary, his manager, Jane Rose, who's been with him forever, said, would you come film an interview with him that we might use for this album he's working on?
Wow.
Any opportunity? Yes, absolutely. Happy to do it. And the idea I came up with is bringing in a turntable and a pile of vinyl of records that I'd curated that were things throughout his life that he would like. And we spent several hours just playing records and talking about it. And he loved it because most of the time people want to ask him the same 5 questions about the Rolling Stones.
That's right.
And it was, for me, it was more, what do you want to talk about?
That's right.
Like, you want to talk about politics or history or muddy waters? Great. You know, and I love doing that. And so we just spun records and it kept going. And then at the end of it, they said, well, you should keep filming. So that's how it happened. It was just one of these kind of accidents. But the whole thing was not trying to be the history of Keith Richards. And he didn't want to do that. I said, let's just do what he wants to do. Let's kind of represent who Keith is today and what it's like to hang out with him.
And would you say that what you see is what you get on camera and off camera?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The real deal.
Yeah. Like, and he's kind of no BS at this point, you know. And I'm sure he's mellowed. I'm sure he wasn't, you know, he can still be feisty, and certainly if you've read his book or follow the Stones, he could be really feisty and more difficult back in the day, but he's in such a kind of a good place now, and now he's like he's kind of become the person he always wanted to be, which is an old bluesman playing music.
That's right.
When he was a young man, he wanted to be one of those old guys sitting on a stool and playing the blues, and now he is. So.
And the Stones are working on Mick announced from the stage at Desert Trip that they're working on a new album, and it's becoming an all blues album.
I'm excited. I've been waiting for the Stones to do that for a long time. I mean, I know that's Keith's thing. Is you know, I could listen to them do that all the time. And Mick is one of the great blues vocalists too. I love Mick singing. And I wish he did more of that kind of singing. So I'm excited about it.
I tell him what my uncle told me. My uncle was a master sergeant in the Air Force, and he traveled around the world operating rod and gun clubs for the Air Force. And I told him I was going to be a professional musician. And he said, well, I want to tell you, it's one of the hardest jobs in the world. So you're going to have to work your ass off. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to get any appreciation, which is 90% correct. And that's what I tell them, you know, is don't expect a #1 record. I mean, you may get it, but you may have to work 10 years, just like Bruce Hornsby. You know, he was an overnight sensation, but he was messing with that stuff for 8 or 9 years before he had that hit. And a lot of times that happened. And Glenn the same way. It's a rough business. Well, there's a period in my life when I was trying to write standards. A guy, a baritone player for Tower of Power, came up to me one day, Doc, I think his name is, and he said, Leon, how do you get all those people to cut your records? I said, I've had 12 #1 records. Nobody has ever cut any of them but Tower of Power. And I said, well, maybe your lick's too complicated. I don't know. I mean, standards, when you write standards, when you first hear a standard, it sounds just like a little tune, you know. And then you come back and you hear it later, and then you hear it 20 years later. They're different. I was trying, when I wrote Masquerade, I was trying to write a standard. I wrote Song for You. I was trying to write a song that Ray Charles and Frank Sinatra could sing, a blues song that Ray Charles and Frank Sinatra could sing. 20 years ago, I don't know what the number is now, but 20 years ago, Song for You had been cut 129 times. I don't know, that was before Ray Charles cut it. Masquerade was cut 43 times before George Benson cut it. I mean, I try to write standards. I don't try to write hits. I liked Song for You. Herb Alpert had bought that grand from Western Studio 3. It was my favorite grand piano in Los Angeles. And Herb bought it. And when I played that, I'd never played it that way before. I'd never played that intro before. I just, all off the top of my head, I mean, which is the story of my life, really. And basically, I was trying to sing like Bonnie Bramlett. At that time, we was all trying to sing like Bonnie Bramlett. You know, I mean, she was a person that had a quite unusual singing style. And all the girls were copying it, and I was trying to sing it on that song. A limousine driver told me one time he's in New York, he was hauling Aretha Franklin, and he got to the destination and that song came on. She said she made him sit there and play that 20 times. She listened to it over and over again. It was kind of singing. I really didn't have it figured out ever, but that was the first song that I did.
I've been so many places in my life and time. I've sung a lot of songs, I've made some bad rhymes.
I see the city lights burning bright under an orange-colored sky. The night is cold and dry, and hearts will die waiting for love in the city lights.
So the Marquettes, the Routers, and the T-Bones are groups in the studio. It's the same guys. It's Dad, Leon, Hal or Earl, and they would just do these things.
And that's how things were done in all the cities. I mean, I think in
New York.
The same people that did Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes, you know, or the Pipkins.
Right.
You know, that did Gimme Dat Ding.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that's how it was. Like, you know, somebody gets an idea and you just kind of roll with it.
It had to be that way.
Now, we talked about Hal Blaine, who we talked about Earl Palmer, and there's also Carol Kay.
Carol Kay was the only woman in the group.
Yeah.
She was a guitar player first, and then there was an opening for a bass one time, and she happened to be, you know, she grabbed it and started playing it, and then she kind of went in that direction.
Yeah.
So she became the Fender bass player, you know, the mid-'60s on. And
she played guitar too. Like
she did play guitar.
Did she play guitar on La Bamba? I believe she did.
She played on, I think Don. It's not on La Bamba according to the contracts, but she did play with Richie Valens and Delphi
She did play
Records.
with,
yeah.
wow.
And but that would have been Richie.
Richie.
Actually
He
doing
actually
that,
played
yeah.
the guitar.
Earl Palmer's on that.
Wow.
And but they did so much.
There's also Don Randy.
Don Randy was the piano. There was four or five piano players. You had Don Randy, Al DeLore, Leon Russell, Michelle Rubini. He and who else?
And Plas Johnson actually played the sax on the Pink Panther theme, right?
Yep, Plas comes out, and actually his brother was Plas. Yeah, and his brother actually was another piano player as well.
And then Don Peake.
Don Peake's another guitar player.
1972, I get a call from Ben Barrett at the beginning of the year. Hey Don, listen, Motown is moving from Detroit and they want a band and I want you to be a staff musician. I said, great, I love it. So I showed up and Freddie Perrin called us over to his studio and he had written out this incredible chart and it was I Want You Back, and it was and then David T comes in. So that was written out, and I read that, and Freddie Perrin had the bass an octave lower, and that was a hit record. It was a big hit for the Jackson 5, and then one day I went in there and Marvin Gaye was there, and we started rehearsing this song. Renee Hall was the arranger. It was in E flat, and it was like a. So I wasn't playing the wah wah yet. It was like. And Renee says, "Why don't you make something up at the beginning?" So I did this. Marvin saying, "Let's get it on." That's how that happened.
Pearl Jam 20. So on that film, you were the producer, correct?
Yeah, so I got a call from Cameron Crowe, who, you know, I grew up reading Rolling Stone magazine and was a huge fan of, and he's told me that he was doing this Pearl Jam documentary for their 20th anniversary and needed help, and did I want to help? And I said, yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
And it became, you know, a couple of years of kind of tackling the subject. I mean, the great thing and the difficult thing was that they had documented everything. So there were thousands, literally thousands of hours of footage, which was great, but it took a lot of time to kind of digest it all. But it was, again, a kind of a great experience of learning a whole different way of working and taking you into a different direction.
That's fantastic.
The song's called Kiss Goodbye. Up the hill at night, slowly, one by one they reach the ground. Summer days are made for loving in this hot weather. Maybe someday, baby, you will never ever leave without a kiss goodbye. Up the hill at night, slowly, stars are shining bright. Driving through the city lights, lasting forever, dancing to our favorite song, so we'll never leave without a kiss goodbye.